A former WWE Cruiserweight Champion is set to make their Impact Wrestling debut. We'll be talking about that. Plus, a former NXT UK and Impact Wrestling star is set to return to the company in the near future. We're going to talk about Impact Wrestling on Access TV's ratings from this past week's episode, plus a nice story about former Impact commentator Don West. All this and more in today's Impact Wrestling news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of Impact Wrestling. So let's start off talking about an upcoming debut. A nice surprise, actually, that being former NXT Cruiserweight Champion, former NXT Superstar Kushida is set to make his Impact Wrestling debut in the near future because former WWE NXT star Kushida will make his Impact Wrestling debut at next week's Derby City Rumble tapings in Louisville, Kentucky. Impact announced on Thursday that Kushida will wrestle on both nights of the tapings, which, as you can see in the picture and as you can see on social media, will be held on July 15 and July 16. Now, Impact did not name the opponent for the former WWE superstar. They might do that ahead of time, or we might just have to wait and see. Other things that have been announced for the TV tapings include the Motor City Machine Guns facing off in a singles bout, in which Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin are going head-to-head in a rare one-on-one bout against each other. Now, Kushida, of course, returned to New Japan Pro Wrestling last month at the New Japan Road event in Korakuen Hall. The former IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion would confront Tajiri Ishimori, the current champion, after Ishimori's successful defense against Yujihiro Takahashi. Now, during their confrontation, Ishimori told Kushida that he needed to win a few matches before earning a title shot. In the aftermath of this confrontation, Kushida prevailed victorious in 2 out of 3 multi-man matches on days 6, 7, and 8 of New Japan Road 2022, teaming up with the likes of Hiroshi Tanahashi, Jado, and Alex Zayne. However, on day 7 of the event, Kushida and Tanahashi took a loss to Kenta and Ishimori in a tag team match. Now, Kushida signed a contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling last month, but continues to live in the United States. Specifically, actually lives in Orlando, Florida, just around the corner from the WWE Performance Center, as do a lot of course, current WWE superstars that have gone through that Performance Center system, and even when they leave the company, they still live in Florida. Most of them, they don't relocate elsewhere. And in the case of people like Kushida, who actually emigrated from one country to another, his perspective is, I'm going to continue to work for New Japan as much as I can, but I'm also still going to be based in the United States because I'm still going to be working a lot in the United States. Now, back in April, Kushida's WWE profile page was moved to the WWE alumni roster, which led to many speculating as to Kushida's status with the company. It was later reported by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select that his WWE contract had expired, and it was unknown if he was offered a new deal, if he turned it down. At least one source told Fightful that the exit was related to budget cuts, but that was never confirmed. I always assumed, to be honest, when it came to Kushida and his WWE exit, that like with many people in this transition from NXT to NXT 2.0, if you watched him on NXT 2.0, he just didn't fit. And it was the same with a lot of people. It still is the case now when you've got those people that are left over from NXT to NXT 2.0, is that WWE, for whatever reason, has felt that they're not going to get rid of them just yet, but they also feel like they don't fit. And it's a case of you either go up to the main roster, like people like Tommaso Ciampa is a great example of this, of someone just like, you don't fit in the new NXT model, go to the main roster. If you don't want to go to the main roster, let your contract expire or we'll release you. And Kushida kind of fell into that category. I think, to be honest, whilst I'm a huge fan of his work, and I think you watch some of his matches in NXT, particularly when he was the NXT Cruiserweight Champion, I mean, this guy underwent several variations of his gimmick and of his character. I remember, obviously, he's always had the time gimmick and all that kind of stuff, and he was doing the Back to the Future thing. Then he got a bit more serious, and he was wrestling in jeans. Then he got into changing a little bit to wrestling in tights again, and they just, it felt like they couldn't just find the gimmick for Kushida. The matches were always fine. The matches were always good. And again, I think his best work was as the NXT Cruiserweight Champion. That was at the time, remember, where there was these reports of, the Cruiserweight division in NXT is going to be getting this big push and it's going to be featured heavily on WWE programming. And that was right before the transition from NXT to NXT 2.0. That's when Diamond Mine was going to be a huge thing on the NXT brand and involve all of these people, hardly any of which are with WWE anymore. And I feel like Kushida's got lost in that. And if he went to the main roster, he would have never stood a chance, mainly because Vince McMahon really sees nothing in shorter guys, cruiserweight wrestlers, junior heavyweights, whatever you want to call them, especially people that aren't, from America or English or can cut an English-based promo, which is nonsense because Kushida, again, can talk very good English, but if you've got an accent in WWE, Vince McMahon doesn't like that. Just look at people like Shinsuke Nakamura. Even though they can speak very good English, it's just a case of, well, people might find them difficult to understand, so they can't draw money because Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard and Kevin Dunn think it's 1985 still in WWE, in various reasons, actually. So I wasn't shocked to see him go. He said that once he's left WWE and now he signed this contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling, that essentially he's going to work for New Japan for the rest of his career. Now, it doesn't mean he's not going to work for other companies because he's being booked for Impact right now. And frankly, he's a perfect fit. I mean, talk about, a perfect X Division wrestler in Kushida. I know that, you could just say, and you're just saying that because he's a former Cruiserweight champion and the Cruiserweight division is not the X Division. That is true. I've mentioned several times the X Division is a chameleon championship. And by that, I mean the division and the championship changes depending on who's holding the bout. If someone like Speedball Mike Bailey, who's holding it right now, is holding the bout, it's more of a cruiserweight division. If Trey Miguel's if Trey Miguel is holding the X Division championship, it's more of a cruiserweight-based division. But if you've got someone like Josh Alexander holding the X Division championship, which he did for a long period of time, it then turns into kind of an intercontinental championship, a television championship. And that's what's so great about the X Division, is that it can modify to the champion, and the matches therefore can modify as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if Kushida comes in and quickly challenges for the X Division championship. I'd like to see that, frankly. I wouldn't be shocked as well. We mentioned that the Motor City Machine Guns are going to be facing off in one-on-one action. We could see a reunion once again of the Time Splitters in Impact Wrestling, which would be quite a lot of fun as well. We did briefly see them reunite in NXT as part of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. I believe it was in 2020, prior to the pandemic. We saw the Time Splitters reunite, and we could see a similar thing here. We could see the Motor City Machine Guns break up. It's meant to be spirited, healthy competition, and out comes Kushida, and the Time Splitters are a tag team in Impact Wrestling going forward. I've mentioned several times recently that I do think we need more teams in Impact Wrestling. I do think the depth, as you were, is a bit shallow in the tag team division. We're seeing more and more tag teams in there. The Briscoes, Honor No More. The Good Brothers are seemingly sticking around for a while. But adding the Time Splitters, and that's quite exciting. We don't really know what the future is of Violent by Design as well. It looks like they're going to break up soon. So the Time Splitters having a run for the Tag Team Championship. Chris Sabin finding his own partner. That could be a lot of fun. In addition to that, Kushida could also have a run at the X Division Championship too. So there's definitely some exciting things he could do in the company. So keep an eye out for that one. Of course, if we get more details about what the deal is, I would assume it's a per appearance kind of deal, and also the working relationship with New Japan facilitates this. But we'll have to wait and see, definitely, when it comes to the future of Kushida in Impact Wrestling. But it's not the only debut/return to Impact. Another being Killer Kelly is returning to Impact Wrestling. Killer Kelly is returning to the Impact Zone. Now, a vignette for her impending comeback to Impact Wrestling aired on the latest episode of Impact on Access TV. She was noted as coming soon, but an exact date for her return has yet to be divulged. Now, this will mark Killer Kelly's first appearance in Impact since December of 2020. She had previously appeared as an entrant in the Knockouts Tag Team Championship Tournament, teaming with Renee Michelle in a first-round loss to Jazz and current Knockouts champion Jordan Grace. Now, it was previously reported by Fightful that Impact Wrestling officials were keen to sign the Portuguese native following this impressive showing, but some things had to be worked out before she could actually make a deal with the organization. This was reported in May of last year. The Impact had finally secured a deal with her, and that was positive. It was a sign of Kelly's work. Mainly, it was visa issues, and obviously because of the pandemic and the visa issues and getting green cards and getting into the Portuguese embassy. There was just a lot going on if you cast your mind back to that. But then the delay also was that she said she had to step away for some health issues. I recall that she did a post where she was saying that she was basically taking some time away because she was having issues breathing, and certain times in matches she felt like she couldn't breathe as well, and that was becoming an issue for her. I would assume that she's got those resolved, which is great. And look, Killer Kelly's going to be a fantastic addition to an already stacked Knockouts division, so I'm very excited to see what she does there as well. Of course, also, once we get more details about when she's going to be coming back, we'll talk about it here on the channel as well. Let's talk about the ratings for this week's episode of Impact Wrestling on Access TV. Thursday's episode of Impact averaged 119,000 viewers for Access TV, according to Showbuzz Daily. Now, this viewership is up from the previous week's episode of 100,000 viewers. Now, Impact will be happy with this, but Impact did not crack the cable top 150 in Thursday's cable ratings. Impact drew a 0.02 rating in the 1849 demographic, which was actually down from the prior week's 0.03 rating. The follow-on show from Impact, which of course is the New Japan show, also failed to make the cable top 150. I mean, I guess Impact will be happy with that. As I mentioned, I think Impact's hope of going back to the numbers they were doing during the height of the pandemic, where there were no spoilers and there was no crowd, and there was just more people watching at home, I guess, as well. I'm not sure they'll be able to get back to that. Of course, there are other means to watch Impact Wrestling episodes as well, because Access TV, the irony being is, whilst it's got access in the name, it's actually quite difficult to access that cable network. You can watch it on YouTube, and you can watch it around the world in other means as well. So Impact does have other ways of distributing their content. So television ratings aren't always the best way to judge, but nevertheless, Impact will definitely be saying, actually, we were still doing good numbers in the pandemic, and that will be something certainly that they'll be thinking about as well. Finally, I do want to talk about Don West. Now, of course, Don West has been on quite hard times recently with his recent brain cancer diagnosis, but the Wrestling Observer newsletter has provided an update on Impact Wrestling's efforts to support Don West in his battle with brain cancer. So far, Scott D'Amore, Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President, has raised almost $14,000 for Don West's medical bills. Impact has also produced a private video for West with members of the roster, as well as people from the past, such as AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and Dixie Carter, which is just a great story to hear. It is a great story to hear, considering that I mentioned this before. We spoke about Don West at length here on the channel, and I was a really big fan. I know people at the time used to criticize his delivery or him being over the top. Mike Tenay and Don West, for me, made TNA wrestling in the early 2000s. Their passion was unrivaled. I thought they just did great stuff. I thought they were passionate, and I thought they added something to the product. They were different. We had heard, obviously, Mike Tenay in WCW. We hadn't heard Don West really anywhere else. He was a pitch guy, he was a sales guy. And it's always horrible to hear about good people struggling with health issues or what have you. So, especially, obviously, I know the healthcare system in America as well. It's a healthcare system for profit, unfortunately, and medical bills rack up very quickly. Not everyone is as fortunate as people in the UK or in other countries where healthcare is subsidized and a public service. So good for Impact Wrestling for supporting one of their own, and we still have faith, and we still believe that Don West, you can get through this. You absolutely can. Be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.